The minute that Paige and Andrew sent the email out to the leaders about the cloud, I felt like Elfin, I know my cloud. I know who my cloud is, and so I knew I had a story to tell. So let's start with this scripture that Andrew and Paige are having us look through for our study. The study comes from Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. You can follow along while I read it to you guys. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down on the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. And then Andrew and Paige asked us two questions. They said, who is your biblical example of that scripture, of that cloud? And who is someone in your life that portrays that cloud to you? So like I said before, I know my cloud. I know who that is. But the biblical example was a little bit harder for me. So I did a lot of research and I read through some different articles on this topic, and I found it. I found the person in the Bible I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And I'm going to start with that biblical example, the cheerleader of the Bible. Now, I don't mean the cheerleader you're thinking of. That's cute Katie Blake and Zach after a football game. And it's not Maddie and Haley from cheerleading, sorry. No. Actually, the person in the Bible that's known as the cheerleader of Christ is Paul. Now, you're going to help me out here. Do you guys remember who Paul is in the Bible? Do you remember Paul? Did Paul always have the name Paul? No. What was his name before Paul? Saul. Okay, but was Saul a good guy? No. He was. He persecuted Christians. He was an awful dude. In fact, he was even known to be there at the stoning of Stephen. Like, he was not a good guy. But what happened to Saul? Does anyone remember what happened to Saul?
He got blinded by the light.
Something on the road to Damascus. Does anyone remember on the road? He was blinded. Thank you, Annalise. He was blinded. Who blinded him?
God.
Oh, good job, Zach. That's right. It was Jesus. It was Jesus. Jesus was like, whoa, Saul. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you persecuting my people? Now, Saul had a complete transformation. In fact, do you remember what else happened when Jesus talked to him? What happened to his eyes? He went blind. That's right. So that's that whole story. But the main point you need to take away from that is that Saul had a complete transformation, and Saul became who? Paul. Now, when I'm saying transformation, I'm talking a big transformation. It's kind of like those kids at school. Have you ever had those kids who come back after the summer and they're like, hey, I'm so sorry I was a jerk last year, but this year it's good. And it's kind of like, really, are they that good person or not? I don't know. But you guys, really. Saul really did have a huge transformation. And in fact, such a big transformation that you guys, did you know that he is known for writing 13 books of the Bible? Did you know that? He started some of the earliest churches for us. He is now known as one of the most significant historical figures of all time because of everything he did for Christ. It's my brother John calling me right now. So I want you to listen to what Paul has to tell us in Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 11. Listen to Paul's words here. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Do you hear how Paul, with his words, he's telling us how we are to act if we are followers of Christ. Paul is encouraging us to develop the art of cheering on the family of God. Paul's words what he speaks right here, this scripture describes my cheerleader, my cloud. So let me tell you a little bit about my cheerleader. So as you guys know, I've attended this church for a really, really long time. In fact, since 1979, I have been coming to this church. It's kind of dates me, doesn't it? My parents moved us from Wichita, Kansas, all the way down here to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. My mom found a Mother's Day Out program here at the church, and the rest was history. This picture that you see up there, I'm sure my friends who came, I'm sure they have a few of these on their trees. So this was from the 1980 Advent Workshop. Yes, they had the Advent Workshop way back then. And in this is a really precious picture to me because my grandma and grandpa are in the back, my mom and dad, you see my sister, Susan, on the side, my best friend Amy Kosler standing right next to me in the front, and my brother John. The very next year we lost my grandpa, so this is a really special picture to me, and it hangs on the tree. The boys are always like, who are these people in this picture? But yes, we have quite a few of those. Do you have quite a few of those on your tree too? So we did that, and I remember way back when, we sat in the marble seats. Who goes to the 9:45 service? Okay, so my family actually went to the traditional. I did not start attending the 9:45 service until I had the boys. I was a traditional service worshiper. And where the barbels sit, that was where the Kaisers, those were the Kaiser seats. And I remember my dad ushering, I know, it's kind of crazy, right? I remember my dad ushering, I remember Sunday schools. You guys, we had the best Sunday school teachers. Do you guys like Jolly Ranchers? Yeah. Like the best thing, do you remember the Irwins, Andrea, and how the Irwins, we would get Jolly Ranchers for memorizing Bible verses and chapters of the Bible, and the whole going through the Bible, if you could do that, it was a really big deal. And attendance stickers, yeah, it was great. So it was around this time that I met my cheerleader. Are you ready to see her picture? Okay.
Yeah.
This is my cheerleader. This is my cloud, Susan Thompson. Now it says youth director underneath that picture, but actually Susan Thompson was the children's director and the youth director at the time. So I was very special because I got her for both my children's director and my youth director. So as I was writing this talk, I reached out to Susan because I was like, how did this happen? How did you become the children's director and the youth director? And it's interesting because Susan said she actually started out as a preschool teacher and she had no intentions of becoming a children's director or youth director. Kind of like the Saul Paul thing, you know, okay, just saying. So here in this moment, she said Jack Featherston came and spoke to her when she was teaching preschool. Jack Featherston was one of our former pastors. And he said to Susan, I really want you to apply for this position. And Susan really didn't want to. She didn't think that she was qualified. She didn't think she should do it. And he's like, just do it, just try. So Susan got her resume together, went into the interview, not thinking she would get it, but sure enough, thank goodness the people at that table saw something in Susan because she was hired on the spot as our children's director. Thank goodness. That was a great move. I wish I could give those people a hug, Susan. So that was my children's program, but next slide, because I'm telling you guys, she did an awesome job. We started doing these Sunday night programs called CEF, Children's Evening Fellowship, and we would go to sing and we would do musicals. So in this picture, you can't really see it very well, but I'm a little book in the pink and blue. But then my fellow youth, that's Chris. Chris, wave back there. Wave, Chris. I'm pretty sure that he's salty in this picture, Chris. Yeah, I think that's you right there. And Rita, I think that's your daughter in the green right there. I think that's April. That's right there. But Susan also encouraged, even at a young age, to do lots of different things in the church. Yes, I was a handbeller. Have you guys seen the handbells at Christmas? I did that. I did handbells. I know. And even at a young age, she had us doing service projects. I remember going to all the different houses around our church, and we would do all different projects for them. So that was just the children's group. But you remember me telling you that I had a sister that was older, right? Does anybody have an older sister or brother?
I do.
Yeah. So children's group was great. I'm not gonna lie, I loved it. But Susan, the youth group, I could not wait to get into youth group. youth group. And you guys, look, I was so excited because, yes, I finally made it to the gas station. Where you are right now, that gas station right there, that gas station was my youth group building. And I mean, you guys, it was awesome. I mean, the couches in there, oh my. I mean, they were bad. They were bad. I mean, I don't even think Susan, no, I think in fact when we tore down the building, Susan let us tear those up, I think, because we did not, you couldn't even donate the couches and the furniture that we had back. Oh, we did have a jukebox. You're right, I completely forgot about that. Yeah. So it was in this building that I met lots of my cloud, my people. I met Rita Searles. I met Karen Barnes. I know. Do you know those names? Bill and Pat Roberts.
I love Karen.
Yes. And it was here that these volunteers taught me so many things.
Whoa.
Some of my favorite memories, of course, were mission trips. Oh, are you making fun, Lauren, of my picture? The t-shirt did not exist in the 90s, I guess.
Hey, when it looks like good, you can't cover it up.
So these are pictures from my time in youth group. And yes, mission trips. Yes, keep going, Andrew. All the different camps and mission trips. Oh, and Wednesday nights, guys, Wednesday nights we called it Pack Bunch. And we would start the night off, and we would all meet at a different restaurant. It was awesome. Like, we would go down to Choco or Bueno, we'd go to Arby's, we'd go to McDonald's. And I really don't know because we did not have cell phones back in the day. Susan, did you just like tell us on Sunday? I don't know. Where we met here. Oh, we met here, and then we went to eat. Okay, that's what we did. But yeah. And you guys, for my girls in here, who does liturgical dance? Oh my God. You are meeting the founder of liturgical dance. Heaven dancers back there. It was amazing. Oh, you're still ready for the dance? Okay, good. Was that what you told us here was Breath of Heaven dancers? Okay. Okay, so with all of this going on, you would never have imagined everything going on at my house. So that picture that I showed you had my little brother in it. So I think I've shared with I know I've shared with my girls before, but my brother was born with a rare genetic disorder that causes seizures. And so John was in and out of hospitals. He had multiple brain surgeries during this time. So my mom and dad's focus was on John. And you can only imagine what that did to my mom. Having a special needs child in your home is really, really hard. So their focus was John, and my mom had a very hard time during this whole high school year raising me because she was taking care of what she was going to take care of John and herself. So these people were my family. These people were my clouds. I was able to come on Wednesday nights and Sundays, and I could leave all of that at home. It was amazing to have the love and the support, the prayers when I needed it. And the cool thing, guys, like during all this great fun stuff that was going on, these leaders were teaching me how to love others. They were teaching me, building me up in my faith. It was like, I didn't even realize they were building me to be the woman I am today. I'm standing right here today because of those people. They were my cloud. All this fun I was having, it was great. But it was more about what they were doing in my life and how they were changing me. They were truly more than leaders. They became my church family, and this church became my second home. So, you think that's the end of the story, right? Like, okay, well, she graduated, you know, did a couple Mexico mission trips, wonderful, and she's done, right? Right? No. I feel like the story is still continuing. Because I look around the room. Do you see that man back there sitting next to Beth? Do you see Jimmy Burdett? He was my first boss. I was his children's nanny back in the day. And his family and I were so close that at my wedding, Jimmy's daughter sang at my wedding. And Jimmy Burdett drove Mark and I downtown to our reception in the limo afterwards. And it's so cool that now Jimmy Burdett is now in my children's life. And Jimmy Burdett has changed my kids and built my kids' faith, just what these people have done for me. I look at Bill and Pat Roberts and you're like, Bill and Pat Roberts, how are they in your life right now, Emily? Oh my gosh, you guys, do you know this crazy woman started running how many years ago? 5 years ago? Yeah. So I decided I'm going to do this half marathon down in Dallas, right? So I go down to Dallas, and well, of course, it's the first weekend that Mark has basketball for Zach. So he's like, I want to be there, but I can't be there. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, it's going to be fine. I don't need anybody there. Okay, guys, if you have runners in your life, try to be there. It's really cool if you can be there on the sidelines. So as I'm crossing that finish line, knowing that no one's going to be at the end of the finish line, and that's okay, it's okay, I keep telling myself. All of a sudden, I hear from this side as I'm running through that line, you've got this, Emily. Keep going. You've got this. And I look over. Do you remember this, Bill? Do you remember? Do you remember that? Yes. And then this over Christmas this year, I ran another race. And once again, who was at the end of my race to put the medal around my neck? My cloud, my Bill and Pat Roberts. It's pretty awesome. Pretty amazing. Let me see. My Karen Barnes. Okay, so Karen Barnes and Rita, I'm telling you guys, mission trips with Karen. You know the van? You know how you want to ride in that van? Yes. Karen and Rita, you wanted to ride in their van. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Harlequin romance novels. I'm just going to leave it there. Yes. I mean, what is that? Let's just say romantic novels with a lot of info in it, and you know, I mean, for girls, and it was a girl reader, right? What? Susan's like, there was one time we were driving back, and you know, like how you're so excited to go back into the parking lot and drive into the parking lot? We were 5 pages to the end of the novel. So Karen is driving around Broken Arrow trying to finish the novel before we pull in. It was great. But anyways, 30 years later, fast forward, and Karen Barnes and I are now serving on some of the most important committees in this church, making decisions for our church home. And it's just awesome that we have this connection, that we're able to help make those important decisions for our church. And then, of course, Rita Searles. Do you guys know, I have like that volunteer thing going on, right? Okay, so do you know who else is my volunteer person with me? Rita. It is Rita, that's right. So a few years ago when I quit teaching preschool, Desi took me to lunch and she said, hey Emily, hey, I heard you quit your job and I have something for you to do. I have an idea. I want you to become our new volunteer coordinator at church. And Mark had already warned me. He's like, stop saying yes to everything. Say no, say no. But the minute she said, but hey, you're not going to do it alone. Rita Searles is going to do it. I mean, it was like, okay, Rita's going to do it. I mean, I'm going to do it. I have to do it, right? So Rita is my cheerleader. She's my cloud. She's been my person for 30 years. A few months ago, I did this thing called Walk to Emmaus. Maybe your parents have done it before, maybe not. But I had to give my very first talk. This is my second talk, but I had to give my very first talk. And it was to 80 women. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Life of Piety was my talk. And Rita had helped me through the whole thing, but she wasn't going on the retreat. 2 weeks before the retreat, one of the ladies backed out. Guess who got to go on the retreat? Rita went on the retreat. God knew I needed my cheerleader, needed Rita to be there to listen to my talk, and she was there. And I'm so thankful that she said yes on that. So you see, Susan and Jim had no idea about this legacy they were creating and this cloud for me. and so many other youth. There are 2 other youth members that were in my youth group. Andrea was Andrea Wiley to me, not Andrea Sagely. And Andrea was in my youth group. Chris Mills, if you guys know Emma and Jade and Sammy, Chris was also in my youth group. And I guarantee you, I don't even have to ask them, they're here because of those 2 people sitting right there. You know Lauren Moore?
Yes.
Guess who started volunteering under Susan and Jim Thompson? Lauren Moore was my brother John's middle school, right? Is this correct? You went to my house back in the day. I didn't even realize this. Yes, and she was a leader for the middle school at that time. I think, Jimmy, you and Mindy were Sunday school teachers under Susan and Jim. Is that right? You were. I'm pretty sure you were. So I'm just saying, see all these different connections and the legacy that Susan and Jim. So, a few years ago, when Graham was the pastor, Graham had this new thing he called Volunteer Appreciation Night. I was sitting back where Beth and Jimmy are right now, and Jason Moore was sitting next to me. And as you guys were getting up and talking about the people in your life, in the youth program and all the leaders and how thankful you were, I turned to Jason and I was like, Jason, I wish we would have had this back in the day. I wish that we could have said to Susan and Jim, thank you. Thank you for all you've done. And in Jason Moore form and fashion, he said, what's stopping you? Why haven't you? I was like, no. Okay. So the next day I went out, I bought a card, and I wrote that card to Susan. Do you remember Susan? And Susan was so sweet. She immediately, like the minute she got it, because it was just a day later, she called and texted and we talked and we knew we needed to get together. We needed this group to get together. So I think Andrew has my slide. So about a year after that card, we decided to have a youth group reunion at my house. You guys, Jim and Susan aren't just my cheerleaders, because we had 90 people show up at my house to say thank you to Jim and Susan Thompson. They had no idea the legacy that they were leaving behind. I know I would not be standing here today if it weren't for their zeal, their love, their cheerleading for me. And the best part of all of this, guys, is that it's still continuing on. I still get to be a small part and come to youth every Wednesday night, and I'm 44 years old. I get to look at my kids who are paying attention well, right? That are getting to be a part of this youth group. I want you to listen again to what Paul tells us in Romans chapter 12, verses 9 and 11. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Don't you see that Paul is encouraging all of us to develop this art of cheering on the family of God? And every one of us can be a cheerleader for someone. And that's what Paul was saying to us. We are called with all that we have to cheer on the things of God, the work of God, the people of God, for the glory of God. Every Christian is a cheerleader, practicing the art of cheering on the family of God. I'm just so lucky to have had the greatest examples of Christ's cheerleader in my clouds of witness. Thank you, Susan and Jim. Thank you.